In Somalia, in East Africa, people are living in dire poverty, but are now being given access to life-saving medical care. In Zimbabwe, a family whose crops and livelihood were devastated after a drought now have food to eat and a chance at survival. In Honduras in Central America, the land of these local indigenous people is being taken by large mining companies, but now they are learning about their rights and reclaiming their homes. And in the West Bank in Palestine, aid is being brought to those whose lives have been devastated by violent and bloody conflict. These are just some of the over 350 programmes that the Irish charity Trócaire is engaged in all over the world. It was established in 1973 by the bishops of the Irish Catholic Church, and over the past 50 years, Trócaire has provided aid and assistance to millions of people in some of the worst affected regions of the world. Its CEO is Caoimhe de Barra, and she explains why the charity came into existence.
Trócaire was established in response to the poverty and also humanitarian disasters that were at that point being televised and being brought into our living rooms here in Ireland.
With over 40 people dying per day at the moment, and with only a minuscule emergency relief operation.
And that's really interesting. That was one of the catalysts, the fact that we were getting kind of these television pictures for the first time, which made people want to help.
That's right. So there was the Biafra war in the late 1960s. There were huge floods in Bangladesh. So people were seeing these almost for the first time in their own living rooms.
With a great deal of shock and sadness among the Irish people as to what they were seeing on their TV screens, the Irish bishops decided to set up a charity where the Irish people could help in a very practical way. Bishop William Crean is the chairman of Trócaire.
It was part of a whole sense of movement at that time in the life of the church, where there was a great consciousness of the injustices that prevailed across the world. It wasn't primarily to proclaim the gospel of itself, but it was to live the gospel to wherever the need prevailed. There were no conditions placed on it.
It has been a very difficult 3 days, very, very difficult.
In 1992, a drought in Somalia caused a devastating famine, where around 300,000 people starved to death. Mary Robinson, the then President of Ireland, went to visit the country and couldn't hold back her tears in front of the world's media.
And I'm sorry that I cannot be entirely calm speaking to you, because I have such a sense of what the world must take responsibility for.
The Irish President and Trócaire were responsible for millions of pounds of aid being sent to Somalia at the time, and that work is still being done today, over 30 years later. Paul Healy is Trócaire's country director in Somalia, where again, another drought has caused unthinkable suffering.
So in Somalia at the moment, it's probably, the worst I've seen in my 25 years in this part of the world, Colm. There are currently about 8 million people who are extremely food insecure. About 1.4 million people have been displaced in the last year due to drought. So it's a very, very bleak situation. And our health facilities are inundated with children who are really on the edge.
Today, over 400 people work for Trócaire, and their annual budget is around €58 million, 24 million of which comes from the Irish government.
You see hope. Often it's on the faces of children, despite huge poverty and neglect, and you feel you've really done a good day's work.
And now, with the changing face of Ireland, some Africans living in Ireland are volunteering with the charity, trying to raise awareness of social justice and human rights issues in the world. Like Grace Ogunsanya.
Working with Trócaire, Grace, do you feel like you're making a difference?
Absolutely, because every little help that you can make, it's not about you erupting the whole world. Yeah. Every little thing counts. It's making a difference in the life of someone, somewhere. If I see an organization helping an African country, why not support them?
This year, Trócaire celebrates its 50th anniversary. And with the war in Ukraine, civil unrest in parts of Africa, the recent devastating earthquake in Syria and Turkey, the work of NGOs and charities like Trócaire is still very much needed.
What is it about the Catholic faith, the qualities or the values that propel an organisation like Trócaire forwards?
It's essentially the gospel. As long as you did it to the least of these, you've done it to me, the words of Jesus. It's a gospel imperative.
What keeps the team going at Trócaire? Because it must be disheartening sometimes when more problems appear around the world, more suffering with the war in Ukraine, with famines and droughts in Africa still today. What keeps people driven here to continue to help?
What we have the privilege of seeing is the difference we make in people's lives every day. And I think we innately then understand that somebody who is suffering in another country, whether it's because their human rights are being violated, whether it's because they are being beaten up for trying to just participate in a normal democracy, or whether they're suffering from poverty and hunger, that we innately feel an empathy and we feel simply that's not right, that is not right, that should not be happening. That's what drives us. We cannot but stand with them and support them.
In Ireland, Colm Flynn for EWTN News In Depth.